What does a plant need to grow? Well,
Water, nutrients, sunlight.
water, nutrients, sunlight, anything else? Today the students are doing an inquiry-based lab on plant growth. They are going to set up a group of Wisconsin fast plants, and they're going to choose a variable to test on how the plants grow. They're going to set the experiment up, and then it's going to take about 5 weeks for them to monitor and measure the growth of the plants, and then they'll analyze the data and form conclusions. In the soil, but what if the soil is depleted? What if you're a farmer and you have been working the soil for several years and you find your crops are not doing as well? So you can add it through fertilizer, okay? The numbering tells you what % of the solution is each nutrient. And it always looks at the top 3 nutrients. It looks at nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. What can we control about the fertilizer? How much we use? All right. So if you over-fertilize the plant, it affects the roots first, because the roots are touching the fertilizer because the fertilizer's in the soil.
You put in 50% of a liquid fertilizer, and then you put 50% water and then leave it in for the week.
So we're going to use different concentrations of fertilizer on our plants. So rephrase that problem statement for me, Eric.
What is the effect of different concentrations of fertilizer on plant growth?
Good. You need to be specific in your hypothesis. If such and such happens, then this will happen because of this evidence, okay?
I feel like 5 is still too much.
I do as well.
But then again, if you look at the amount of soil, it's very little.
The first thing I want you to do is water the soil. You want to add water to the soil each pod until it drips out the bottom.
You said only one. Yeah. You gotta let it like soak through first, because it won't drip it.
Alright, drip.
It's dripping.
Well, we first did background research, so we had a variety of questions that talked about the anatomy of the Wisconsin fast plant, what it needs to survive.
Okay, so first we started with our research to get some background information, our pre-lab, and then with that we kind of came up with our problem, looking at what's important to the Wisconsin fast plant and what it needs to grow, and then with that we came up with our independent variables. In this case, it is fertilizer concentration of 1%, 2%, and 5%. And then with that information and our prior knowledge, we came up with a hypothesis, and I can just read my hypothesis from our group. If a 2% concentration of fertilizer is added to the Wisconsin fast plant, then that plant will have the greatest height because the 2% concentration is high enough to provide the needed nutrients, yet low enough not to burn the roots. And then after that, we came up with what our daily procedures were going to be, just to make sure it's constant and that every plant's getting the same attention. And then just noted our independent and dependent variables along with our constants. And then we'll get ready to set, the last things up, put it under the lights, and then start measuring.
We planted our seeds, and we decided that we're gonna water the plants every class period, and then we're gonna fertilize them every other class period, so once a week. And then we're gonna record them record the growth every class period too.
Well, each plant should grow differently depending on the amount of fertilizer put in.
Okay, so if we put them all in there, we'd have to make sure we label them properly. And you'll notice that your quads are labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Wait, water
starts coming out the bottom.
It can be applied to real life, whereas, say, if you're starting a garden, it would be helpful to know, start learning about why fertilizer is helpful, if you need fertilizer, and just kind of learning about plants and learning about how each of them has its different needs, kind of like people.
Maybe in the future they might find a way to put this into some other plants or something.
I think it's very important for students to study science in high school, and all the way through their lives they should be keeping up with it, because science is all around us and it's in the news all the time, and it would be really helpful for them to have some base knowledge, so when they hear somebody talk on the news about science, they can relate to it and understand it versus just scratching their head and not knowing what's going on.
or if maybe they've just germinated.
Okay, I'm also hoping that the students will gain some knowledge about how plants grow, and they will be able to apply this to their daily lives when they have their own homes and they want to grow things in their garden, or if it'll give them more information about how things are grown in general, so that they can form opinions and be more valuable citizens.